Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's a great Monday morning here in the nation's capital. Thanks for tuning in to O'Connor and Company as we're waking up the whole country here on America's favorite morning show. Coming up at 8:05, Maggie Cleary will join us, Deputy Commonwealth Attorney in Culpeper County, about a brand new bill Democrats passed down in Richmond that will cap the criminal sentences for felons, violent felons, indeed. And then at 8:35, Chris Elston, Billboard Chris, will join us. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie, and good morning to Laura Morgan. She is the Chief of Staff of Do No Harm, which, of course, you know is part of the Hippocratic Oath, right? That's what doctors and medical professionals are, at the very least, supposed to do. No harm. She is a 40-year nurse veteran, and she joins us now about a bill making its way through Richmond. Thanks for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you, Larry and Julie, and good morning to you.
So there's a lot to unpack here. I want to start first with what the details of SB 35 are. And then it was proposed by Democrats, but sadly there's a Republican supporting it. I want to get to that in a minute. But on the face of it, this proposes mandatory implicit bias training for nurses. And when I look at implicit bias training, and I've tried to unpack this and see lots of examples of it, it's basically usually, vast majority of time, set up in such a way where the curriculum forces the individual taking that training to admit their built-in biases, to admit, basically, you're not going to get your license renewed if you're a nurse right now in Virginia unless you do some sort of, sit in front of a tribunal and say, yes, I'm racist. Is that, I know I'm painting with broad strokes, but that's what these usually end up being.
That really is what it boils down to. And the bill's language does include both the boards of nursing and medicine. So this bill will affect all 320 medical and nursing practitioners in the state of Virginia.
Wow. And right now, if a private corporation that's hiring these nurses or doctors, if they want to go through some sort of DEI training or whatever, there's nothing stopping them. But this would mandate it, that you cannot practice medicine in Virginia unless you first admit you're a racist.
That is correct. The bill proposes that without the implicit bias training, that licenses will not be able to be renewed. And this is a little surprising in a time when we've heard much news about the lack of nurses and physicians available to take care of patients already. We've heard from nurses and physicians in other states that already mandate this, and some of them are actually leaving the profession over it because they don't want to agree with those principles.
Right.
Laura, isn't this also already sort of a part of your training? Aren't you taught as a nurse or anyone in the medical field that you are to treat people equally, that you're supposed to give equal care, that you're not supposed to consider things like race or sex or any of the, like, you're just supposed to give good care. So I find this so insulting, again, because it assumes you all are, there's bad people in this industry. But again, if you could sort of shed light on the fact that this is already part of your training to give people good care no matter who they are.
Julie, it always has been from day one. And the word you used, insulting, is the one that other practitioners use when they contact us about what can I do about this training. And indeed, physicians and nurses are taught from day one that you treat all your patients equally. But unfortunately, concepts like implicit bias go along with other concepts such as health equity, which doesn't have anything to do with equality.
I think also people are afraid that these sort of concepts introduce ideas like, let's sort people into different groups. You are an oppressor, you are oppressed, you have benefit because of the color of your skin or because of what sex you are. Don't you feel like some of these trainings almost introduce these concepts that before people weren't really thinking about?
100%. And, by the time medical students get to med school, they've already had years of indoctrination of this because it goes all the way through the undergraduate system of higher education. And, it's surprising that Republicans in Virginia would vote for such a thing when Republicans in other states are voting to move away from it.
Yeah, that brings us to Senator Chris Head. Don't know the man. He's down in the Roanoke area, but apparently he has crossed lines in the Senate, and he has supported this as well. What is he thinking?
I'm not sure. It's really disappointing that this happens because the concepts of implicit bias are really in direct opposition to what equality means. To go along with the things in which we need to bring about some sort of utopian state of health equity, which is not achievable, is very surprising.
This is Senate Bill 35, and Republican Chris Head has actually co-sponsored it. He's the only Republican who's spoken out. And this is at a time, by the way, when DEI, this whole diversity, equity, inclusion, which is basically sort of manifest in this bill, it's finally being scrutinized and being removed either from college campuses. We saw it play out in Harvard earlier this year. Corporations are defunding their DEI programs right now. He's going in the wrong direction. There's no way Governor Youngkin would sign this, even if it makes it up to his desk, would he?
Well, I hope not, because there's been some mention of limiting government interference in our daily lives. And Senate Bill 35 actually requires monitoring of the training that physicians and nurses taking when they're traditionally self-reporting that. But now there will be mandatory monitoring of that.
It's outrageous. Senator Head, we'd love to talk to Senator Head and find out exactly what he's thinking here. He's buying into a myth. It's a racist myth, by the way.
Yes.
That's the ironic thing. When you sign on to these things, you're siding with the racists, the people who only see life through the eyes of race. Laura Morgan, do no harm. Thank you for looking out for the medical caregivers in Virginia, and hopefully we'll kill this thing in its tracks.
We appreciate it and would love your listeners to go to donoharmmedicine.org and see the work we're doing.
Thank you, ma'am. It is 7:40.